folks, Sty North again. Another little Sty story. This one I like to call the Huckleberry Bear. This little story, I know there's a lot of people out there. I've had people say, oh, well, now he's weaving tales. He's not telling a true story. He's just weaving tales. But I assure you, this story is true. One thing we did out west, because I took on jobs all the time out there that were short little kind of jobs that had a simple purpose. I got a paycheck when I was done. The job was done. You could get jobs out there doing thinning contracts for the Forest Service. You would work for a month, and you don't get paid until the job is done. Well, you work for a whole month, and then you get a nice fat check at the end. But those were the kind of jobs that were available out there. It was very difficult to find a full-time, permanent job. To find an 8 to 4 job, you're really dreaming. So you made the money when and where you could. But because we lived a minimalist lifestyle out there, we homeschooled our kids, and the wife was at home with the kids all day, and so I could take these odd jobs, and we really only needed, at that time, we wanted to make enough money to, pay for our supplies, and the majority of our groceries and dry goods and things of that nature, and other expenses. So we found that one source of income that was really interesting and fit right into my love of the outdoors was picking huckleberries. Huckleberries, I don't know what they are today, but back then, I was getting $24 a gallon for those things. I'd go up there and pick huckleberries all day long, and well, when I say all day long, maybe 4 hours, and I could easily make $250 to $500. So I loved it. I was able to pick about 5 gallons of huckleberries an hour during the peak of the season. And the thing is that you had to find these huckleberry patches. They weren't just everywhere. And the best ones seemed to be in the far backcountry, especially old clear cuts where they had logged several years prior. Those clear cuts, some of them would just get covered with huckleberry plants. Well, I had scouted out and found a lot of good huckleberry patches that other people didn't know about. And we set up a huckleberry camp up in the backcountry right on a nice mountain creek where we set up camp and we lived there for the summer. And I'd go up every day. I had a little Willys Jeep, and I'd drive that little Willys Jeep up in the backcountry to my favorite patches, and I'd pick berries for the first 4 or 5 hours of the day. After about noon or so, you didn't pick because it would get too warm and the berries get soft and they're hard to pick. So you only got to pick in the mornings, basically. Well, this one day I went up to a patch, and I could not believe the amount of huckleberries there were. The bushes were so overladen with huckleberries, they were just, the bushes were laying on the ground from the weight of the huckleberries. There were so many. And I was picking, oh my gosh, there were so many that I was picking about 8 gallons an hour. And I got on this one bush that was just huge. I bet you it was 8 foot around, that bush. And there was a dead log laying right next to that bush, and I sat down on that log and I started picking. And After about 10 minutes of picking, I heard this kind of odd smacking sound. And I thought, what the heck is that sound? It sounds just like somebody smacking their tongue on something. And I sat up straight and I looked over that bush. On the other side of this bush that's about 8 feet around, sitting there is about a 650-pound grizzly taking his paw and pulling in branches of that bush and eating all the berries off those branches. And he's only 8 feet away from me. And I'm sitting there with this little bucket that's got these fingers on it for picking berries, and my 5-gallon bucket of berries, thinking, he's going to have me for lunch. I'm hoping that he's spoiling his lunch by eating all those berries first. All of a sudden he turns and looks at me, and I thought, uh-oh, don't look him in the face. And he looked at me and sat there and just smacked his lips. He's smacking his lips. He's got berry juice running down his face. He reaches over and grabs another piece of the bush and he starts eating his huckleberries again. And I was so intent on getting the berries off that bush. It was so overladen with berries. And now I got a grizzly in my bush. He's taking all my profits. And it was really, I was hard pressed to slowly walk away from that bush and get to my Jeep and just get out of the patch. Because I wanted those berries. And I thought, and as contented as he appeared, I actually thought I could probably have finished picking that side of the bush. Because the bear was happy with his side of the bush. But that's the closest I have ever been to a grizzly bear. And probably the most afraid I had been of a grizzly bear, but it was only for a moment, because all of a sudden I realized, nope, he was a huckleberry bear. He didn't care about me, he just cared about huckleberries. So that was one of my truly close calls with one of our furry little friends that like to live in the Northern Rockies. I've had other encounters with him where it wasn't so nice. But that big fella, he just liked his huckleberries. And I really appreciated the fact that he was a huckleberry bear and not one that wanted to eat me. So, there you go. There's another story from Sty from out in the great Rocky Mountains. So, there you go. Keep checking out the Sty stories. We'll talk.